This is the 85th annual meeting of Cherryland, and a special one as we celebrate Tony Anderson's tenure over the last 100 years. 150 members have submitted their ballots, and therefore a quorum is present. So we will dispatch business in accordance with the bylaws. And now, if you are able, please rise as the color guard from the Traverse City Union followed by the singing of the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars do the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Killed it.
At this time, we're watching via Facebook and YouTube.
Heavenly Father, we ask you today for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allowing us to nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, and guide us with your infinite wisdom as we deliberate upon important issues today. As we continue to remind us in all that we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of the truth and greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things through Christ our Lord, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Melinda. I'd really like to encourage you to participate in today's meeting. We'll have a question and answer period near the end of the meeting. And for those watching online, you can submit your questions in the comments section. And if you're inside, we'll have Cherryland staff members by the pool tables ready to relay your questions to us if you have any. At this time, I want to welcome all of our board members. You just heard from Senior VP Melinda Lautner. We have Secretary Gabe Schneider, Treasurer Tom Van Pelt, Director-at-Large Terry Lautner, Director-at-Large Dean Adams. Representing Benzie, Manistee, and Wexford County, we have Director Valerie Handy. Of course, General Manager Tony Anderson. And our Corporate Attorney, Corporate Counsel, Mr. Greg Jenkins. We also have special guests here today. We're honored to have with us Mr. Jim Matheson. Now I would like to recognize our scholarships. 5 scholarships. 3 of them are $4,000. So $3,000 scholarships for Stephen Ness.
Want to recognize and encourage your continued success in your future education, and congratulations to all of you. Good job. finally, I'd like to thank the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office for being here, as well as Incredible Mo's for hosting this event and their fantastic team. And a big shout out to the Cherryland team for putting this all together. The planning that goes into an event like this takes a lot of work, as you can well imagine. I was here at an event earlier today at around 7 o'clock, and a lot of scurrying around, well, especially with the weather. We're trying to get these heaters going, and there they were at 7 in the morning, texting and getting phone calls. So let's give a big hand to all those organizations that put this together. Now I'd like to bring Secretary Schneider to the podium, and will you please read the notice of meeting and proof of mailing?
Thank you, President Schweitzer. Good afternoon. I, Gabriel Schneider, being first duly sworn on oath, depose and say that I am duly elected, qualified, and am Secretary of Cherryland Electric Cooperative, hereinafter called the Cooperative, that on the first day of May 2023, mailed to each member of the Cooperative a notice of the annual meeting of members of the Cooperative in the May edition of Michigan Country Lines. Such meeting to be held on June 15th, 2023, by depositing such notice in the United States Mail with third-class postage, and here attached to is a true and correct copy of said notice of meeting mailed as aforesaid.
Thank you, Gabe. At this time, I would like the Secretary to read the minutes of the previous annual meeting or accept a motion from the membership to dispense with the reading. Do I have a motion to dispense? A motion to dispense? So moved. Let's see. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The ayes have it. We will dispense with the reading of the minutes and will now ask for approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion approved. Now I'd like to introduce our corporate attorney, Mr. Greg Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we're going to move forward with the election of the directors for the 2 board seats. Any member that was in line at the ballot box at 5:30 and is still in line and would like to cast a vote may do so. Otherwise, all voting is closed. Are there any questions regarding the balloting process at this time? Just the way I like it. Hearing no questions, I direct the election committee to proceed to complete the counting of the ballots in accordance with our bylaws. And I would like to thank those members for their service here today. They are members just like you, and they are Marvin and Nancy Scott, James Vanderlee, Kenton Anderson, Ron Dilly, Linda Burton, and Julie Newcomb. Again, thank you all very much for your service today.
Thank you, Greg. Up next, the Treasurer's Report from Treasurer Tom Van Pelt.
Good afternoon. The unconsolidated balance sheet of Cherryland Electric Cooperative Incorporated as of December 31st, 2022, and the related unconsolidated statements of income, equities, and cash flows for the year then ended have been prepared by management in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and include all auditor adjustments by the CPA firm of the Raymond Group. A copy of the audited consolidated balance sheet and statements of operations for the year ending December 31st, 2002 is included in the May issue of the Michigan Country Lines magazine. Audited financial statements are available at the Cooperative's offices upon request.
Thank you, Tom. Could I ask for a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report? have a second? Second? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, as I mentioned before, we have some special guests today. We want to welcome today, all the way from Washington, D.C., the NRECA President or CEO, Jim Matheson. Just so you know, the NRECA is an umbrella organization that supports approximately 900 co-ops, just like Cherryland, some larger, some smaller, in the United States. The NRECA provides many benefits and many services to all these co-ops, such as pensions, 401ks, health benefits, director training, and I think I heard the number was 7,200 directors in the country. And those change every year with the elections and retirements, and so director training is very important because we have to know how to do our jobs and we have to learn the industry. When I first got on the board, there was a packet that thick of just acronyms trying to figure out what everything meant, the NRECA, the MECA, and all that stuff, and I still don't know. It's been 7 years. But perhaps one of their most crucial missions is to advocate and protect the co-op interests in Washington, D.C., and to basically hold our elected officials' feet to the fire to make sure that they understand how we operate. Jim knows his way around the Beltway. He served 7 terms as a U.S. Congressman from the state of Utah from 2001 to 2015, and was known for working across the aisle to get things done, which is a rarity today. He was a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee and several other committees as well, and his depth of experience is a great asset to our collective cooperative missions across the country. Let's give a warm welcome to Jim.
Okay, it is great to be here. Thank you for that introduction. What's wrong with this weather? You know, I'm from Utah. It's a desert. We never see it rain. I love water coming out of the sky, so I'm enjoying this. It is great to be here with all of you. I have used the line before that people don't trust, and as I'm here from Washington, I'm here to help you. It's not, but in this case, it's not that I'm from Washington, it's that I work there. But we work for you. In fact, our national organization, NRECA, the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, that is a mouthful. It's a co-op as well, and the 900 members provide the direction for what we do. And just like this member meeting here, we have an annual meeting at the national level, and every cooperative has one representative that comes to vote on the resolutions that give us direction on the priorities and the positions that we take in the policy world, on the services we provide cooperatives around the country. It's a grassroots, bottom-up, member-driven organization in Washington, D.C., and that makes us different from a lot of the organizations in Washington, D.C., because we take our cues from folks outside the Beltway. And in the fractured, polarized world of Washington, D.C. these days, that actually is an asset for us. We have this ability to have more of a genuine reputation based on how we're governed and how we're directed by people outside of Washington. So in a town where these days nobody seems to want to trust anybody, they actually trust us. And it makes the job for me and the folks who work at NRECA more fun, quite frankly, more fulfilling, but also more meaningful. Because we believe, all the employees at NRECA, we believe that we're part of this mission that you live every day, where Cherryland Electric serves the members within its community. Cherryland Electric is owned by the members it serves. That community focus, that notion of making the community a better place, that gives us a lot of incentive. It inspires us. I had a chance to see some of what Cherryland does. Today, we had a chance to, after I met with the employees in the morning, we went and visited some local businesses that have benefited from the revolving loan program that Cherryland has utilized through the Department of Agriculture to help local businesses either expand in their operations or start up their operations. Often we use the term that while poles and wires and delivering reliable, affordable electricity are the central mission of electric cooperatives, I like to think we're more than that. I think we're in the quality of life business because of that community focus, that community ownership model, it sets us apart in how we do our job. It sets us apart in the utility industry as well. The investor-owned utilities, and we get along with them, but they have a different model. They're owned by shareholders. They respond to interests on Wall Street. We don't have shareholders, we have consumers who own the utility. And everything we do at the national level when it comes to policy advocacy, everything we do, every policy we act on is through the eyes of that member at the end of the line. And how do we make sure that when you flip the switch, the light goes on? And at the end of the month, how do we make sure that the bill they receive is affordable and they can pay that bill? So in that context, since I am from the Washington area, I want to talk about an issue that is really front and center right now for America's electric cooperatives, and that is relative to this issue of the reliability of power. You know, in the energy sector, you'll hear everybody say, we're for reliable and affordable power, energy. The natural gas industry says that, the oil industry, everybody says they're for reliable and affordable. And that's a good thing they do, but we really mean it. And right now we're in an interesting challenge as a country when it comes to the electric sector and keeping the lights on. And I'm not here to be Mr. Doom and Gloom. I hear more to call out a circumstance that we're acting on. NRECA is being a consistent and loud voice on this to try to make sure we don't get ourselves in a less reliable future. But here's what's happening. As a country, we're using more and more electricity. I guess if you're in the utility sector, that could be it's considered a good thing. But demand for electricity is growing in this country for a number of reasons. It's growing because the economy continues to grow. It's also growing because we're shifting to use electricity where we used to use other fuels. You see it with the advent of electric vehicles. You see it in the ag sector where you see a lot of places where they switch from diesel irrigation pumps to electric pumps. You see it where they're looking at heat pumps that are getting more efficient and are competitive with gas furnaces. There's electrification going on throughout this economy, and that very well could be a really good thing, but it is increasing demand. And at the same time, our supply of electricity, the way we generate electricity in this country, it's changing, and in some ways, it's going down. And both those issues matter. The changing and the going down both matter. The decrease is because we're shutting down plants before the end of their useful life. And if we're replacing it all, we're replacing it with not the same type of capacity where it's available 24/7, 365. And so if you take down a plant that is available all the time, a coal plant, a natural gas plant, a nuclear plant, and let's say it's 1,000 megawatts, and you replace that with 1,000 megawatts of wind or solar, that's not the same 1,000 megawatts, is it? And I know that sounds obvious, but in the policy world, we're still trying to explain that to people. Wind and solar have a role in a portfolio of generating assets. They can have a role that could be of real value, but at the end of the day, you have to have that component to your portfolio that is always available. The term in the electric sector is dispatchable, but in the policy world, no one knows what that means. So I always say always available to make electricity, that type of power resource. You know it here in Michigan. You've had, what, 3, 4 coal plants shut down recently, 1 nuclear plant? I mean, it's happening here in your state. Roughly 10% of all your generating capacity, as I recall, has been shut down. That's not good when you're in a state like Michigan that's a peninsula state and has limitations on how much power can come in from outside of the state. So you are a microcosm of what's this broader issue across the country where we've got to be careful about messing up what is a remarkable accomplishment, which is the development of the United States electric grid that has served us so well for so many decades. So that's the concern that we're trying to raise nationally. We're concerned about, with demand going up, that we're changing the supply so it's less available or it's less in total amount. And the third issue, and I won't go any deeper than the third, is even if you do want to replace capacity, it's really hard to build things in this country these days in terms of getting a permit to build it. Hard to get things sited. And so when you want to build a new power plant, be it a natural gas plant or a solar farm or wind farm, if you want to build a new transmission line, the environmental permitting process in this country is pretty challenging. And in an industry where we have to make long-term capital-intensive investments and decisions, which is what the utility sector does, that's just an added element of uncertainty and risk for us when we don't know how long it's going to take and if we're going to be able to build new assets to meet the needs of the grid. So we've been real strong advocates for permitting reform in Washington because we think the permitting process has gotten out of control. We're not saying there should be no permitting. We should go through a process and decide if projects make sense or not. But what we'd like is a defined time frame. Let's have a reasonable time frame. At the end of that time frame, give us the thumbs up, give us the thumbs down, and we can all move on. Now, the good news I can tell you is Congress, just in this recent debt ceiling issue, and let's set aside the nonsense of the debt ceiling issue, that's not what this is about, but there were some permitting reform language in that legislation that did create a 2-year time limit for anything permitted under federal National Environmental Policy Act. So that's good news that we got that tie with it. There's a component that they didn't include, though, that still has possibility for delay that we're still advocating for, and that is, you know how these things go. After you go through the process, groups can sue, and it gets tied up in the courts for years. So we're trying to create some limitation on how litigation affects that as well. It's in all of our interest to have a more certain process, a more transparent process. And like I said, it doesn't mean everything, if the decision is no, it doesn't qualify for the permit, at least make it where there's a defined time frame and we can move on and make other decisions. So I want to give you a little background on that's what a lot of our focus at NRECA these days is making sure we have a reliable grid and trying to speak out when we see actions that we take in this country put that grid at greater risk. I can speak to this. I can tell you, we've got our folks from Wolverine, including CEO Eric Baker. He can speak to this far more eloquently than I can, and he lives it every day because he's in the generation world. But I can tell you that this is an issue that's got our focus. And like I said, every policy issue we look at in Washington is through the lens of reliability and affordability. And so I thought I'd give you a little background on that. Now, I need to close with one other set of comments, and that is, as much as I value the opportunity to be here and to see what Cherryland's done, it's also real special for me that I'm here on Tony Anderson's last day. Tony, as you probably know, is on the National Rural Electric Cooperation Board of Directors. Each state where there's a co-op, and we're in 48 states, elects one person to our national board. And Tony's been on that board since 2008. And the leadership qualities that Tony has exhibited here at Cherryland that all of you are so familiar with, those leadership qualities have been valued by that board as well, such that the board elected him the president of our board. And he's the president of NRECA right now. He's been a board officer for, we have a sequence where usually you go secretary, treasurer, vice president, president. So Tony is in the 5th of the 6 years, I believe, something like that. And so it's been, and as CEO, while I value all 48 board members very much, all board members reserve great value, say that to this board here, you do need to work, particularly with the board of 48, those board officers are critical partners in terms of setting vision and making decisions and ensuring good governance of your national association. And Tony has been rock solid in that role for the organization, and his leadership is palpable across our board. And on a very personal level, Tony is someone who I trust implicitly, and I can have any type of candid conversation I want with him, and I'm comfortable that he will be totally candid with me as well. And that sounds like that's how we should all behave in the world, but not everyone does. And so I just wanted to share with you how much I value Tony's participation at the national level. His many, many years at Cherryland have created such great advancements in this organization and where this co-op is, but I want you to know that that leadership has also been felt for us in our Washington, D.C. office, and also among the 900 cooperatives across the country who are led by this organization. So, Tony, I'm glad I could be here to join you at this moment. I want to personally thank you for all you've done. He's not done as NREC board president, by the way. He may be done as Cherryland manager, but his term for board president continues, and I look forward to working with him throughout the rest of that term. Look, I appreciate the chance to be here with you today, to spend a little time with you. You must wonder, what's this guy from Washington, D.C. doing up here at our stage? But I really am glad to have the chance to come to this annual meeting. 85 years. Did you hear that at the start? This is the 85th annual meeting. People have been doing this same type of gathering since the late 1930s. Think about that. And you are part of that same experience. I think that's pretty special. And that's what keeps me going every day. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Jim, and it's great to have you here, and I hope you can make it back when the weather is better. I can guarantee you that this is really bizarre, and our June weather is usually much better than this. So, and I want to take it back to Greg. Greg, do we have results yet? Okay.
Ballots have been counted, and we have all the results for the election of the 2 board seats. With respect to the at-large board seat, our results are as follows. David Schweitzer has received 2,994 votes. We also had dozens of write-in candidates with a total of 46 being cast, with no one candidate obtaining more than 3 votes. Therefore, Mr. Schweitzer, having obtained the most votes, is elected to the board. Congratulations. With respect to the Leelanau County Board seat, we have as follows. Tom Van Pelt has obtained 2,989 votes. We also had, again, dozens of write-in candidates with a total of 36 votes being cast, with no one candidate in that category obtaining more than 2 votes. Therefore, Mr. Van Pelt, having obtained the most votes, is elected to the board. Congratulations.
Thank you, Greg. I was talking to Greg earlier just before, and I was getting worried because he said there were 3 write-in votes for Elon Musk. So I can say I beat Elon Musk in an election. But I think Tom and I'm speaking for Tom as well, we want to thank you for your support and for electing us to another term. So thank you very much. Now I'll ask Secretary Schneider to attach the certificate of inspection of the election to the minutes of the meeting. Okay. Well, we've come to that moment when Tony addresses you for the last time as your general manager. But as your board chair, I can assure you of the fact that Tony leaves your co-op in great condition and in much better shape than it was when he arrived 20 years ago. You know, earlier we spoke about the 900 co-ops in the country. I want you to know your co-op consistently rates in the top 10% in many different categories and in many metrics, however you want to measure it. And as Jim said, that's indicative of his strong and effective leadership. You know, for those of you who serve on boards, whether they be church boards or homeowner association boards or whatever, you know how smooth an operation can be when you have effective leadership. I've been on the board for 7 years, and I don't want to use the word easy, but I will say it's been smooth. We've had to make some tough tough decisions, but because of his leadership and because of the great management team that he surrounded himself with, I think it's made our jobs as board members very straightforward and uncomplicated. And that's all a credit to everything that Tony brings to the table as far as his leadership is concerned. And Jim, we know that Tony is going to do very well at NRECA, and he'll be just as effective there as he was here. And you're really lucky to have him on board. So folks, let's give a warm welcome to Tony.
This on? We're good? Good. You know, I had the tradition of wearing a different shirt every year with a message on it. If I would have worn a shirt this year, this would have been the message. I wanted to go out at this meeting in Cherryland red. The weatherman had a different thing in mind. But I want to leave you with something that I've said a lot to my management team over the years. DGS stands for do good stuff. Some days I use a different S word, but it's just do good stuff. And the bottom one is get stuff done. That's all we've tried to do for the last 20 years. So I'm going to talk to you, or try to talk to you, about 4 things. I have some thank yous to give out. I need something from the membership going forward. I'll talk to you about my next chapter. And then I'll tell you a story about this jacket. That I've never told. But the first thank you is my wife. You would stand up, Mary. I write a lot of notes to employees' wives to tell them that you need a solid foundation at home to do your job at work. And she's been my solid foundation for 39 years. I moved her 4 times, and when we moved to Cherryland, I told her hell would freeze over before I left, and we're only a few degrees away from that today. The next thank you is this board of directors right here. I get a lot of credit for doing a lot of stuff. They give me the room, they give me the budget, they give me the opportunities to do that stuff. This board right here is the best co-op board in the state and one of the best in the nation. And they're the board you all have elected. So I want to thank this board for all the opportunity to do good stuff and get stuff done, because it starts with the board. And after the board, we have to have a good partner. And our biggest partner is Wolverine Power Cooperative. We keep the lights on because they provide us the generation. 20 years ago, our generation was almost all fossil fuel based. Today we're 66% carbon free, and we've kept your rate increases minimal over that 20-year period of time. I'm going to talk about the reliability better, but I need to thank Eric Baker and his team at Wolverine for being a great partner these last 20 years. And on the legislative side, in the state of Michigan, we have the Michigan Electric Cooperative Association, headed by Craig Boyd in the back of the room. We need to get stuff done in Lansing, too. And Craig has led that team for a number of years, and they've been a great partner at the state level. And at the national level, you heard Jim talk. Jim has a team in the halls of Capitol Hill every day, advocating for you to keep the lights on, and both those teams at the statewide level and the national level every day are getting good stuff done for you all. So I need to thank them as well. You do nothing alone. And the biggest team is in the back here. There's 60 employees at Cherryland. In the last 20 years, with some good help from a retired HR professional in the back of the room, and the newest one who's been with us 90 days, we've hired 57 of these 60 people in the last 27 years. So I'm leaving you with the best team I've ever worked with. This co-op is not me. This team is them. And while I'm leaving today, they're staying. And they will work for you, and they will do good stuff, and they will get stuff done far into the future. And I'm so proud of them and grateful to have them serving you when I leave. So please give them a good round of applause as well. Now the members, you all are part of the team. You elect this board, but what you've done for me over the last 20 years is supported, encouraged, challenged, and made me better. One of the files I left the office with today was every note that I ever got from a member. I saved every one. And so many of those came at the right time, on the right day, when I needed a boost, when I needed some encouragement. It's lonely in the CEO office, you know. You need to know you're doing the right thing. And you all have done that. I have 2 of those on my wall in my garage. I have this love me wall, or whatever you want to call it. Love me some me. It's where I'm going to go in retirement and say, yeah, maybe I was okay. It's not room to hold them all. But in the fashion of perfect timing, Wednesday, on my last real day in the office, I pretty much screwed around today and didn't do much. But I opened the mail and I got this letter from a member in Cooperative. And we've had this running thing for a long time of, do you read the recipes first or do you read the manager's column? And it's been kind of tongue-in-cheek and kind of not, but every once in a while I would get one letter that says, I love the manager's column, but I'd get 200 that say, we love the recipes. So I've always been behind. But literally on my last day in the office, I got this card, which will be going on my wall. And it says, I'm going to break the stereotype of the average reader and say I always read your editorial first, then page through to the recipes. True story, but it's better. That's a strong endorsement for your communication skills because I'm a retired chef. Thank you. If you know my favorite movie, chefs do that. So that was amazing. My next chapter, Jim's talked about it. I'm going to chair your National Association for another 20 months. That time is going to go by. But that's why I need to step away from Cherryland so I can focus on that. And Cherryland's got such a great team. I didn't want to be the absentee leader. I've been doing that for a little while. But I wanted Cherryland to have the best. And I wanted them to not lose the opportunity to have Rachel Johnson lead. So I'm moving on to NRECA. Another thing that comes with that, there's a bank board, there's a national bank board. I'll serve on that for the next 20 months as well. I do 1 year at the trade association as past president, so it's 2026 before I'm out of this business, so I feel like I got a good soft landing to get used to being at home a lot. And the other thing I would do right beyond that is we started with me and some other volunteers from across the co-op world, we started a nonprofit in December called the Cooperative Family Fund. And what the Cooperative Family Fund does, if you're a full-time co-op employee at any of the 900 co-ops in any of the 48 states, and you pass away with kids under the age of 18, we're setting aside $10,000 for each kid to receive when they turn 18. Since Thanksgiving, electric co-ops across the country have lost 13 employees, leaving 29 kids without a parent. Those ages range from